In the middle of 2020, I think it was safe to say that everyone's life had changed. That's probably a big understatement. Because of COVID, a lot of face-to-face industries and ways of lives and attractions had to be shut down and closed for the time being. It's weird to think that at least in the UK, you had to order food when ordering a drink, and to this day, this still is quite crazy. During this time in COVID, because everyone was working from home with Zoom calls and stuff, people had a lot of free time. You could literally commute from your bed to your desk, which is what I had the pleasure of doing when I was working from home during COVID. During this time, if you were like me, you would have been using this time to become fitter. I think at least the amount of fitness from home influences during that time that came out of nowhere was crazy. Joe Wicks was doing a fitness class like pretty much every day. I used to go for walks so much more often. What I started doing was like skipping, push-ups. I had these like elastic band thingies that were like stupid, to be honest. I even stacked these planks of wood that I had from the garage to make a bench that I could do bench dips off of. Most of these exercises didn't require me to leave the house because there was literally no commute to the gym. The gyms weren't open. But around this time, I started doing 5-kilometer runs, and during these runs at first, it was very tiring. I would take lots of breaks from the continuous running. On my usual route, there was this midway point around the 2.6-kilometer mark. There are two paths. The one that is shorter and is pretty much a flat surface, running back along the roads that lead back to my house, which is very relaxing. Then there is the longer, more painful and difficult one. This route continues up a long continuous hill, which at the end of your run really tests your spirit. Your legs at this point are on fire and your heart feels like it's gonna explode. At least that's what happens during the first time you do it. It just takes some getting used to, and I think it's not just about getting fitter, but it's also having the belief that you can do it mentally. Today I'm talking about how aspects of the book Rewire Your Mindset by Irish fitness guru Brian Keane can be used to craft a better, stronger mentality. He's a bit underrated in the self-development community in my opinion, but definitely a good perspective. I really like the book. He has some very endearing stories about raising his children and his path from being a school teacher to getting into extreme fitness and modeling. But here's 4 ways you can rewire your mindset and start taking the hard route, which is more rewarding than the boring, easy one. Now the first one that we've got is the 4 whys. Brian has an effective way of getting to the roots of most problems. He actually asks why 4 times. And that's a good point. If you really want something, you should question it as many times as you should. Like, why do you want a better body, or a different job, or a better or more attractive spouse? Maybe more money. All of these things have a root cause for you wanting it. You have to diagnose why you want those things. A doctor would always find the reason for why someone's ill or has a disease through the symptoms. It makes sense that you treat yourself in a similar way. And the thing is, if you don't actually have a meaningful reason for wanting those things, you actually end up with something called hedonic adaptation. Hedonic adaptation is where you adapt to the new things, the things that were once novel in your life. You just feel how you used to feel back before you had that thing, or before you became what that would have been. I actually had that experience when I bought a new pair of shoes recently. This can apply to anything, whether this is in competitive sports or going on holiday. The goal is not enough to justify going on that journey. It's not so much as what you have, but it's more who you become. Brian Keane is a big advocate of this idea that the more you strive to have, the less you feel good about getting those types of things. And number 2 is the barking dog. And this idea has helped me out through so many situations. Say for instance, you knock on your mate's door or a friend's, and before your friend answers, a loud dog makes his way down the stairs and is viciously just scraping at the door, like properly trying to get through it. The thing is, when we've got barking dogs like that, normally we think nothing of it. Dogs exist, some dogs bark, some dogs don't. People should be approached the exact same way. If someone says something nasty to us, maybe we work in a supermarket, people get angry about their favourite product not being in stock for their 15th time. Let's be honest, when people are aggressive to us or shout, it's never nice thing. I've spent many a time when I've had these experiences thinking about all the amazing comebacks I could have had with this person, and I'm just stuck in bed thinking about it. But why am I thinking about this? The trick is that Brian comes up with is to treat every person like a barking dog. Barking dog wants attention and it's emotional. People are no different. So in theory, we should not be disturbed by something in that way. Number 3 is the Great Wall of China, and let's face it, when you're facing your goals, it can be very intimidating. It can really suck, and when I was at university, I used to take a look at the word counts and have a panic attack, thinking I can barely send long messages to people on social media without taking a long time. How am I going to write all of these long essays with research, conclusions, and professional language? What helped was not extensive planning or doing big work sessions, although this was my approach for a large period of time. Sometimes what I would do was just write about the subject, and that would get some fancy sounding paragraphs. What this did was create something called momentum. You're probably asking how this applies to me and what I've got going on. But what I do appreciate with Brian Keane is how he uses the example of the Great Wall of China to think about the length and size of it, and to actually think about it is insane. But every single person can picture like a brick from that wall. The whole message is taking a bite-sized approach to your goals. Breaking things down brick by brick will reduce the anxiety that you might have about approaching something which in prospect might be very intimidating. Brian, like many of us, has a fear narrative, and the most obvious thing with fear is that it's false evidence appearing real. It's a cheesy acronym, I know, but it's true. We can all get into our own heads about fear. Keane was about to fly out on this trip to the Sahara Desert to do 6 back-to-back marathons. Yeah, that's right, 6. And his thought process was all over the place, understandably. This is a legendary effort. He was having nightmares of poisonous snakes, which is not surprising at all because he had to carry a venom pump with him at all times. But this is the main idea. Behind every fearful challenge is the person you want to be. Brian's example is quite extreme, but I think for most of us, think of a time where you've ever felt self-doubt. Like, I'm not confident enough to talk to that person. I don't have enough money to be or seem successful. I can never write that book. These are fears and doubt narratives that are understandable because they sit between success and failure. But avoiding your inner desires, you're buying into another philosophy, which is regret. In the book, Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, the author of the book writes of her time spending it with many people that are in the final stages of their lives. It's sad, but it's a bittersweet experience, as you can imagine. The author mentions a few things on the list, but I won't detail any specifically, but this one. It says, "I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me." I do feel like being in the age of social media has manipulated our decision-making process. When I've explored jobs in the past, the first question I've had is, what do people think of me when I tell them I've got this job? By not listening to other people, but to your guts about what you find meaningful, it allows you to make good decisions. What stopped me for ages from doing YouTube was worrying about what people close to me and people not really in my life anymore would think of me if I ever got any type of exposure. I would say fame isn't a want to me, it's kind of a fear. But what I know deep down is about having the courage to listen to your own passions, not what other people expect of you. Anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you like this, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.